Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Malinowski, co-president of SOMA Action and lead writer of our voter guide. And as many of you are aware, for our voter guide, we get our committees to go and look at their issue areas and say, okay, what criteria do we want? What are we looking for in candidates for local office or state office or federal office or whatever it is? And so for right now, though, what we don't have is we don't have a good criterion at the local level for what's beyond the issue areas, which is regardless of if someone agrees with us, like, are they going to do a good job once they're in office? So what I did is gather together my brain trust of people who know about a lot of these things to ask for your help and insights and brainstorming in what should we be thinking about for developing a criteria for this. And it's really just about, looking for what we should be looking for to make sure that our local leaders are effective. And so the people who are here with me are Allison Posner, who is my co-president at SOMA Action and also a district leader in Maplewood, and Sheena Kala, mayor of South Orange, and Jermaine Kripe, who is a trustee for SOMA Action and also a former member of the Maplewood Township Committee, and Ritu Pancholi, who is also a trustee of SOMA Action and a former president of SOMA Action, and who has been a massive leader in creating Essex Reform Democrats, working on anti-machine politics at many levels of government. And I'm probably forgetting something. Oh, Secretary of the South Orange Democrats. No, you're
Vice chair.
Vice Chair. I'm Secretary for South Orange Democrats as well.
Perhaps you'll want something.
No, you're good. Please. And so thank you all for joining me to help out with this. And so before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we are having this conversation while there is an active race on for Maplewood Township Committee. And so I just want to start off, like, we're not going to be talking specifically about the candidates, but we are talking about local government in general. So I just want to check in if anybody has a close relationship with anybody who's running, just because it affects a little bit, where we come from. But also, I don't want to put you on blast, like, put your friends on blast, talking about them while there's an active race and things like that. So let's see.
No, just big fan of everybody stepping up.
I would consider Mayor Vic DeLuca a friend. I've been working with him for the past 10 years on things that we've done between the two towns. Not the type of friendship where it's like we're, hanging out on Friday nights or like, going to the hairdresser together. But we certainly have known each other for a very long time.
Likewise, Vic was basically my mentor in becoming a local political leader. I actually threatened him and said, one day I'm going to have your job. And he kept pushing me until I ran for township committee, as well as John Sullivan being a neighbor of mine. We've known each other for about 15 years and within neighborhood activities and events and things. So I feel pretty tight with both of them.
Well, as one of the leaders of Essex Reform Dems, I do have close relationships with two of the people who stepped up to run this year. The first being Deb Engel, who's running for county commissioner at large. I've known Deb for a very long time. She's a personal friend. I wouldn't say we're very close friends, but we're friends. And Martin Severly, who's running for Maplewood Township Committee. I am very, very close friends with his wife, and through extension to Martin as well. And I'm very excited he's running. And both of them have chosen to run with the Essex Reform Dem slogan. So by extension, yes, I'm very well aware of what they're running on.
I probably should have added Deb Engel is definitely a friend of mine, and I've endorsed her. So
yeah, we're mainly focused on like municipal for this round. So we already have the criteria for county commissioner set up. So
great,
should be good. It just gets a lot more fraught with the local level because it's small town.
Yeah.
Those people are doing
right. And I should note, as a district leader, I've worked in close contact with multiple candidates, including Vic DeLuca and John Sullivan, in my capacity within a district leader.
Cool. So let's just kick off. And with Jermaine, could you tell us how Maplewoods Township Committee is structured and like what township committee members are responsible for, basically?
The 5 members of the committee are basically equal. People don't realize this, even though we have a deputy mayor and we have a mayor, we are all 5 members of one united committee. And between the 5 of us and some help from our district leaders, we make the determination who's going to be mayor this year, who's going to be deputy mayor. They have a few more extra roles as far as being committee chair for the township committee and being the ones called to perform weddings and be the lead on a lot of public events, ribbon cuttings, and things like that. But for the most part, we're all equal. And then we pick amongst ourselves the different committee roles we want to do. They've got standing committees and then they've got some subcommittees. And each of us usually chooses between 3 and 5 standing and subcommittees combined so that no one person is responsible for like everything. Um, and they all have one other person on the township committee, also a member of that committee, but one person is considered the chair, and they're the lead of it. But everyone's always welcome and encouraged to attend. However, once we hit a certain number by Oprah rules, I forget the word, we have to record and make it public if too many of us show up. For example, we've had public safety meetings actually when we were starting to have discussion around the access to the all-inclusive playground. Everyone was very interested in that, so all 5 of us showed up at a meeting and we didn't plan on it, so all of a sudden we're like, hey, record. So we stayed in compliance with the state law. But yeah, the committee structure is volunteer based even amongst us, and you can determine whether or not you can or cannot be a part of it. You go with your schedule. I think a lot of folks have interest, and then we also have our lives. So there were committees I was very, very interested in that just did not work with my schedule at work, and I couldn't make it there. And since the committee was already established, I didn't want to mess with what was working. I'm the newbie coming in. I shouldn't be like, change it all because I'm in charge. I was like, nope, this is the day you do it. I can't do it. So let Nancy have it or let Deb have it. And that's how it works.
Can I ask a question? Because it
Sure.
has come up in the recent debate around Maplewood. Is there seniority in terms of like the more senior members or people who've served longer can serve on the committees that they choose first?
What we do is we actually have conversations during our restructuring day that we have. It's a million hours in one day, and we put our preferences out there. But if there's somebody new who wants to try something, particularly with the committee structure I was with, the team I was with Dean, Vic, myself, Deb, and Nancy. All of us were very much when the new person came on, they kind of got preference. Oh, you want to be on public safety? Take it. I'll be your second. Even though that person may have been the public safety chair for 3 years. Everyone was very flexible with it. So no, there's no real seniority.
Okay, great.
And Sheena, how is that similar to or different to South Orange?
So we're a little bit different. So we are a nonpartisan form of government, despite the fact that, we're a very heavily democratic community. And it goes way back to the special charter that was created for South Orange. And so people don't run with party labels under them, and they don't have to go through the South Orange Democratic Committee, whether it's a screening to get an official endorsement. In fact, we prohibit any affiliation like that under our name. So we might say it's, South Orange 2026 or, working for the community. Those are all of yours. We do have a directly elected mayor, which is myself. And that's one of the major differences.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't say that it's a difference of power. It's separate but equal, right? Is that as the mayor, I'm officially the chief executive officer of the village.
Mhm.
And so that's the executive role. And then there's the legislative branch, which is our 6 council members. But I don't see it that way because we've always worked very collaboratively together. So it's not, if they want something on the agenda, of course it goes through me because I set the agenda. If you want to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. In terms of committee assignments, the way that I approach it is like my top priorities, like the areas I really like, the ones that I'm willing to learn more, kind of in the middle, or hard nose. That's really not my interest. And everybody is given equal shot. And if there's ever any ties, we just talk about them and see if there's swaps. It normally works out pretty well because when we look at potential people who are looking at running for office and stuff, we try and have diversity on the board. It's like some people really love working with seniors or like working with the library, and we want to balance that with somebody who's really environmental or loves the public works function. And so we're always thinking about people who are looking at stepping up or running for office as like balancing the skill sets. In terms of committees, I'm sure just like Maplewood would say, is that there's so many of them because we like engagement. So along with the outside of myself, because I'm kind of like sunshine, I have to be everywhere. So if you see me responding online and everything, is I need to know everything that's going on. But the actual structure is there's 6 standing committees. Every member of the village council chairs a committee and then serves as a member of 2 other committees. Then past that, we have statutory boards like the planning board, the zoning board of adjustment. We have our historic preservation commission, environmental commission. We have a parking authority. So there's formal structures for those and appointments that happen by law that come from the governing body. And then we have all the advisory committees where these are special groups that were created to help support the village and advance initiatives. And then each one of the council members then serves as a liaison. So a great example of that is like the Community Coalition on Race or YouthNet or the South Orange Performing Arts Center, where we have special agreements, service agreements with these entities. So there's a liaison. And I know that that overlaps a lot with Maplewood. So if you're running for office in South Orange or Maplewood, time commitment is always probably one of the things you have to be thinking about in advance is how often you can be out, what is your work life balance. And then one thing I think we've done really well, and South Orange and Maplewood were both just featured in a news article at northjersey.com, is about the way that we've adapted past the pandemic to engage more virtually with people. So like, before it used to be everybody would come in person to a meeting.
Yeah.
Now we're all using Zoom, and you can come to our committee meetings via Zoom. Everything is now live broadcasted.
Yep.
I mean, we're so far ahead of the game. If you look around New Jersey, there's some towns that don't even have like a municipal website. In order to get minutes, you need to go to the clerk's office and
Then
get the
get
Xeroxes.
Yeah.
And so for us, like this engagement of having live meeting for the people who want to be live, but also being able to cut to Zoom for people who need to attend remotely, or even our own council members or myself, is like, I'll go away over the summer, I'll be in Florida, and I won't miss a beat because technology. So we've made it so much better.
And so you have a very distinctive leadership style. Like, somebody complains on Facebook and you're like there in like 5 minutes and you know all the facts and you probably got them recruited for a committee. And, like,
Seriously,
things
I don't know
like
how she
that.
does it.
That's actually not a bar that like most people are gonna
Right.
So I'm wondering, like, from your perspective, like, what's sort of the baby version of that? Like, what should we be expecting from, somebody who's maybe stepping into this role? Like, what should we be looking for from that?
You know what? Everybody runs on transparency and they run on responsiveness. But then I find when you get into office, sometimes it's like that was just a talking point. So I think the bar for me isn't high. I think it should be the norm, is that when you run and you say, this is a part of who I am as an elected official, and I present myself to the community, that means being accessible. That means when I see something that I can answer, I answer it. I will say it's a big debate amongst mayors in New Jersey because they find what I do to be stupid. They're like, how are you
Which
going to
is
go
wild.
back and forth with people nonstop? And I always tell them, it's a little secret, but I guess it's not a secret anymore, is that when somebody is coming at you hard, or they have misinformation, or maybe even have an intention of posting misinformation, my goal isn't necessarily to change their mind. I might already know, and everyone else will already know where they stand. I know that our community watches that happen.
Yeah.
They may not be actively participating, but they're observing, they're lurking. And so I might be not changing the mind of one person, but I might have an audience of 2,000 who now have more information that they're empowered with. So that's kind of why I do what I do, even though my colleagues told me that now I should be on what's it called, Instagram and TikTok. I'm like, do you see how much text I post? I never get past like lower than 1,000 words. But I think that we should expect people to engage as much as possible and to provide information, to provide their point of view. They're an elected official. You're not unbiased. You're bringing a perspective. And so I think that type of engagement, if people aren't coming to you, you go to the people. None of our meetings are packed with 200 people.
They're not.
But a post on SOMA Lounge about a car parking too close to a crosswalk will have 70 responses. And maybe I will create a Venn diagram of what it actually looked like at 10:30 at night. That's where people are having the conversation. And so I'm going through the conversation.
Yep, I hear you.
And honestly, that's the reality of what the world is doing right now. I mean, even within like businesses, the option of having a way to contact your people via social media. If you don't have that, you're missing a huge, I would say close to even 50% of your potential base is not even being touched. And our kids, people were trying to engage now that we've switched the law that for kids can voting at 17 now, as long as they turn 18 before the election, the the federal in November. If we don't meet them where they are, they're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And they may not have any interest because you've never bothered to talk to them. They're not coming to the township committee meetings. They're not coming, they're not going to pop on a Zoom unless there's something happening, like the conversations around activities and events that are happening at the high school, or maybe something to do with traffic that affects them. Possibly the park, or any things that are happening in and around like community areas like Maplewood Stock or any of the events. But it doesn't take a whole lot to create content for social media.
Mhm.
You just have to be willing to do it.
Mhm.
And something as simple as that email that you took, just reading it and hitting a record is plenty for those people to take. So if we don't
Mhm.
try, we're not going to impact people. We're not going to interest
Mm.
people into running it, because it's going to look like boring.
Mhm.
And nobody
Mhm.
wants boring.
Yeah.
So what other things should we be looking for, and more broadly, in terms of, what's going to make a town council or committee person effective?
Well, I think willingness to start off with, and an honesty with their families, if they have families. It's a team effort. I know that even though I was in the township committee for the 3 years and everything, Rick and Alice were 100% in that role, because I was no longer in the house. I wasn't there for a lot of those, and if I was, I had the earbuds in and I was at the dining table, that I was unavailable. So the family has to be invested in it and be willing to support you through it. And yeah, there are going to be ups and downs in your commitments where you can do things. And I had to cancel plenty of stuff to make space for township work. But my family was on board. They wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to be happy in this role. So I'd say having a buy-in with your family, being realistic about what you can and can't do, because it is not only mentally exhausting, it's physically exhausting being able to go to all these things.
Mhm.
Because I don't know what your schedule looks like, but because as president you're completely different from just a regular township Joe like I was. But Monday through Friday, there wasn't a day that I didn't have 3 hours or so marked aside for something. Either a committee meeting, a conversation with a constituent, a coffee with somebody, a ribbon cutting, just the township committee meetings themselves, the pre-planning for the meetings. I mean, there's all this stuff that goes into it. So you have to be really willing to work with your schedule and kind of be a little sacrificial. You have to be willing to give up some stuff. It's not an easy job. However, I find that the rewards are worthwhile. So the flip side of it is you get to know everything. And being the nosy kid that I was growing up, I like knowing all the things. I like getting all the memos. And even if I only read them once, I know at least I saw it. So when I hear something come across Sheena's posts online and everything, and someone has some misconception, sometimes she's not the only one that's responding. I've watched Vic do it. I've done it. I've seen Nancy do it. Deb does it all the time.
Mhm.
Dean gets in fights consistently. God bless him. But he's passionate, so you got to give him his props. But yeah, we're able to clarify information in a way where they don't have to read the memo. They
Right.
can just get what they need from us quickly. So you have to also be willing to keep them things constantly in the back of your mind. There's a lot of work involved. It's like being in grad school again. Honestly, it's what it felt like. It really did.
More stuff.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I mean, so I've lived here for a long time. I think raised both of my kids here 15 years, and Sheena was just starting out, I think, when I
Ritu hosted an event for me when I was
I
You're like a
running.
baby to me,
yeah,
person.
and we've always seen eye to eye, but I would
100%.
count our relationship as stronger than ever now,
Absolutely.
right? Because we have an open dialogue about things. So I think one of the things I'm looking for as a resident is a leader who's willing to hear different points of view. We might not always agree on everything.
Yeah.
I'm not your friend. You're a good
Yeah.
person. But like
I'm
you're
good.
passionate, you're passionate. We gotta talk about these issues. But I also want leaders who are visionaries. We're at a fiscal crisis in this community. And we need to look at things a little differently. So certainly in the world I work in, which is corporations and nonprofits, we look for people who bring something from the outside in. Because if you have people who've always done it a certain way, who've been there for a very long time, who've always done it their way, who everyone in township who actually is employed and works for the township knows one or two people, because they've just always been around. They've been around even longer than 15 years, and they've been around and elected in more than 15 years. Then it becomes really difficult to challenge that. And you have inertia and you don't see change. And so it is really, really important for me as a resident, and I believe this in SOMA Action as well. I could have stayed forever if I wanted
Mhm.
in power, but I didn't because I believe in bringing in new people. I believe that you need new ideas. And just like the world is changing,
You have to-
we need new people who bring in new ideas, who are innovative, who communicate in a different way, who talk about things, who are going to push the buck a little bit, who are just different. And so I think I would urge voters to look for that because we don't want to get stuck. We're in a fiscal crisis and we need change.
And I would say it doesn't have to be at a loss to stability. I think a
100%.
lot of people are concerned that when there is, whether it's change in leadership, like Eric and I know, when our time is up,
Mhm.
we then that will be great. Just like it was great, not because we don't love this work
Right.
and couldn't continue to do it, just in terms of what we do here in SOMA Action. It's that the minute, I think we were talking about this recently, the minute we become indisposable or like not replaceable, that is the second we should not be
Yeah, it
here
hurts the
anymore,
organization.
because it will hurt the
The development of
the-
leadership.
yes,
yeah.
yes, because the whole point is we don't want it. It's not us. It's not any one person. It's the organization itself, or it's the municipality itself, or it's the good government itself. So it does not mean that change equals a lack of stability or a lack of progress or a lack of action. So I would agree with you there. And I think more broadly, it's something that I've been thinking about in terms, at the federal level and thinking it back down to the microcosm of our own towns. What is, there aren't term limits to my knowledge, like in a lot of areas. And so that's something that we, just as someone who has worked with SOMA Action before, as more of like an agitator, I would say, and everybody knows I'm out there with a bullhorn at our No Kings and whatnot. And what does that look like when we can apply not necessarily the rabble rousing, but how do we apply being effective in new ways?
But at the same time, I want to push back a little
Yeah.
bit because my professional context is being a teacher in a very, very challenging situation where we had turnover. Like there was a year where I was in the classroom and I was the only non-substitute teacher that my kids saw, and I was actually technically a long-term sub.
Yeah.
And so, I certainly feel that piece when I'm looking for, someone who's going to be a leader of like, is somebody going to stick around for a while? Like,
Mhm.
are they going to be committed? Like, are they going to be competent? Like, there's a loss of institutional knowledge, for example. As long as it's not my computer doing weird things. It's okay. And so, I do also feel like there's a balance there of saying like, well, do people have the deep knowledge of the municipality or can they get it quickly at a minimum?
Right.
That's going to allow them to know where the right places to push are. So
That's right. And I think something that I actually really respect about people is the willingness to say, I don't know the answer to that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Saying that here's where I'm really knowledgeable. Here's, here are my ideas. Here's what I can be good at and effective at right now. And also, you're right. I don't know enough about that. I'm going to
Mhm.
educate myself. I'm going to pull together a team of people, or I'm going to speak to whoever I need to speak to so that I can gain this knowledge quickly and then use it to be more effective in this role.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
township's been pretty good about having strong administrators. I have to give credit for that. I definitely leaned on Patrick Wary a lot when I was in township because of the fact that I came from education and religion. I wasn't thinking politics until I decided, you know what, I wanted to see some things change in my neighborhood. And so I ran. But when I came in, I realized the way that I was going to do things was very much like a school. You go to the principal's office and you go, this is what I'm filling out and this is what I need, my requisition. And I would do it certain places and it would come across as me as the township person telling the people in the jobs what to do. And that wasn't the way to do it. So I had Patrick come gently and be like, no, hun, that's well, you didn't say hun, but Jermaine, that's not how you do it, Miss Craig, and we'll figure it out. And so that helped a lot. And I know you have the same thing in South Orange. It's amazing the people and they've been willing to
Employees
stick
are
around.
incredible.
They are.
Our employees are
There's a
absolutely
reason why we
amazing.
have so many 15, 20-year employees in our communities because
That's
we're
necessary.
doing something right.
And that's a great point that I think people running for office may not understand. When you get elected to the village council or the township committee, you are not directing staff. That is not your job.
No.
And so it's a policy governance, but again, very active policy governance for council members and township committee members is that you do things collectively, and then you pass resolutions or ordinances, and then they get implemented, you know, through a different system. So when people overpromise, like I watch things people say, I'm like, well, they're not going to, unless they can galvanize the majority of their colleagues to introduce that, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
you can have great vision, but unless you have other people who will support what you're pushing, you're going to hit that. And you also need to rely on, you know, the vast knowledge of our employees. Like elected officials may turn over, but you'll have people who have been in public works or in the police department or fire department who really know their stuff, and that's their profession and they know it very well. So you have to really rely on, you know, not just the community, but also balancing that with everything else. To the point of term limits now being, I feel like, you know, I'm still I'm, you know, a millennial, but now I'm the most senior member of my governing body, which is weird because I still go places and people are like, nice. But
I'm married to baseball. Yeah.
yeah, I I feel like I don't support term limits. I think that if you like somebody in office, you're gonna not want term limits, and if you don't like somebody, the first thing you say is like, why don't we have term limits? So I think our own biases get in the way. When I think people stop becoming effective or serving the community and the people that they represent is when you need to turn. We've seen, I don't want to say at the local level, but a lot more statewide, as you've seen people get these jobs. They make money off the jobs. They get big donations from being in the job. But do you see the work ethic? Do you see them working on things at 2 a.m, writing bills or trying to work with organizations? Like, are there hearts in it anymore? I find it to be lazy. I find it to be so lazy. Is that you've gotten a spot, you've been protected by a county line, you don't have to do anything, you have tons of money because people are pumping money into your campaign account, but are you doing the work of the people? Have you ever been to South Orange if you've represented South Orange for 20 years? Like, there's all these questions. So when I see somebody working their ass off, whether they've been in office 10 years, 20 years, or Bernie Sanders, if you're still bringing that fire to what you care about and you're delivering results for the people you represent, then keep running and doing you. The day you wake up and you're not excited and energized to represent people, fight for them, and do the actual work, then get out of office. Like, don't wait for somebody to vote you out. Walk away.
Yeah.
And we do see a little different incentive structure at the local level because it's a $10,000 stipend-ish, plus or minus, depending on what town you're in, not these, you know, some of what you're talking about like the big stipend and things like
absolutely.
that.
This is and it was a big fight in South Orange, if you guys remember. And then Maplewood was able to follow like a little bit behind. But like, we have counterparts that make like, do I feel like I do as much work as some of the surrounding mayors? Absolutely. I do 40, 50 hours a week, but those positions are compensated all in well over $200,000 a year.
Which is madness.
And you have council members, you know, who make well over 100,000. These are huge numbers. And yet in South Orange and Maplewood, we always had this notion of like you know, it's the service to others that makes you do it. But you don't realize that in these offices, we're spending a lot of money to show support to organizations. We're driving everywhere. We're buying stuff nonstop. Like, it just all adds up. So now South Orange is set up so that I receive a $12,000 stipend after taxes. I'm sure it's $8,000. Do I spend $8,000 a year on things related to the job? Absolutely. I blow that out of the water. No problem whatsoever. But for people who may not have the means, asking them to go into this role, whether it is that you have childcare or that you're going to be traveling and you don't keep track of every single reimbursement you purchase for the town or whatever, it was such a disadvantage. It really actually disappointed me to see people say, no, you should be doing 40 or 50 hours a week for free. That's what you should do. So the fact that we even have a modest stipend comparatively, and I think Maplewood upped
It's upped it recently, but when I was there, no. I
What?
spent way more than that. And it was,
I think you guys are at 8,000 now or
something
something.
like that.
So yeah. But if you think you're running to make money,
you're not.
you're
in
not.
South Orange.
You will be out of pocket a lot more than anything a partial stipend will kind of make you whole on any of
And
this work.
for me, politically, that was kind of the reason that I did it for Maplewood South Orange. I just remember American history. When people back in the day ran for office and everything, they were something else and the mayor and
Mhm.
the senator and this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
They weren't career politicians, which is what we have now. And I think that's hurt us in a lot of ways, because if you're somebody who has a full-time job and has responsibilities and has only a limited amount of time, a lot of the back and forth and a lot of the dragging on of discussion of bills that really, they explain
Mhm.
themselves. There's no reason to drag it out other than to hope it fails. And if your team has the power, then great, congratulations. But it doesn't really serve the people. The job is for serving the people. And again, when you stop serving the people, you really need to get out.
And sometimes, I mean, the public, you would hope that they're aware, but the county line system that was in
Yeah,
place,
yeah.
the money that goes to candidates,
Yep.
the forming of relationships that never existed, you know, to set up teams against outsiders. I mean,
Arranging the
it's
ballot.
still a very real problem. And I mean, I know that you guys have been working.
Might be a
I've got a perfect
segue.
Yeah. So I want to turn to Ritu, who has been a major driver in
The-
developing the Essex
Yeah.
Reform Democrats and challenging these sorts of
County
things.
line.
And Sheena just listed a batch of them, but could you tell us a bit more about just what machine politics looks like in New Jersey and what pitfalls you want people who are getting into politics to watch out for?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I mean, I grew up in Jersey. I studied New Jersey politics. I went to Rutgers. So like this is something I care about really, really deeply. When I first moved to South Orange, I remember thinking, oh, I want to get involved in the Democratic Party. How do I do that? And like I would go to meetings, wasn't clear what they really did. And I was told, it's one man, one woman in every district. And my district was already full. There was already a woman who was doing good work, and therefore I should just step down. And so I listened to that for years, and I didn't run for district leader because I did SOMA Action. I wasn't wanted, and people don't believe in term limits, so I didn't do anything about it. But then eventually I got to a point when we saw what was going on with the Tammy Murphy and the Andy Kim situation and the line, and I said, wow, it's finally going to go down. Like
Yeah.
litigation is going to take
Yeah.
us down because people don't want to be removed from power. Power is seductive. Power allows you to do things. Power allows you to get rich, and people were making money off of politics. And people like it. People like it. You know, they just like whatever it is. There are good reasons or bad reasons, but people were going to be removed. So when the line finally went down to some degree, right? It's not completely gone, but when it went down, that's when a bunch of us said, you know what, this is our time. We need to organize. And I think we were like sitting at the former Fox and Falcon, and we were like, let's organize. Let's get people in every district to run, right? Regardless of whether or not people ask us to run, we're just going to run. This time we're going to run. And so a bunch of us ran as a fair ballot Democrats. And we, in South Orange, we swept a number of seats. In Maplewood, we gathered few. And we were really lucky because the year that we won was the first year they had an Essex County convention in order to determine who would get the endorsement of the county in like every time there was an election.
Right.
So of course, Mikey Sherrill is now our governor, and that left the seat open. Fast forward to where we are. We have not only participated in one, I think we've participated in like 3 conventions at this point.
Yeah.
A number of us, and we're up for re-election. But that has given us an insider view as to what is going on at the county level. And what we've realized is, the bylaws haven't been approved. There's no ranked choice voting. Online voting can be really delayed. There aren't really any kind of like formal rules to how we elect the officers of our county party. Even right now, we don't know when we reorganize after we're reelected as district leaders, how the leaders will be elected again. Last time it was an oral vote on a Zoom call. So there are a lot of procedural things which for someone like me who is an attorney and a litigator and someone who's involved in compliance, I find it very disturbing.
It's a goosey.
It's very
Call it
loosey and
loosey-goosey.
disturbing, right? And again, my core ethics are I believe in change. I believe in outsiders being able to say, hey, this looks kind of strange. We need to do something about it. And so a number of us have raised our hands, and I think we've been, as Larry Ham says, street corner agitators, and that's okay, right? It's okay to have agitators looking at what's going on under that rock. The county has a huge budget. Where is that money going? How is it being distributed? I'm not saying it's being distributed in a negative way, but peering below to see, well, why is there still a line on the
Mhm.
county commissioner line? Why are 4 candidates still grouped together when the line went down? Why is that still allowed, right? It's not clear. It's not clear why we had to vote so early to even endorse 4 candidates for county commissioner. So things like that keep me up at night.
And might I add,
yeah,
for
sorry.
folks who are not as in, who might not have had access to hear about these conventions, sometimes they are thrown together within literal days,
Mhm.
and you don't get an opportunity to hear from the candidates either.
Yes.
And so that, and their information may not be even ready on a website for a
Right.
district leader to read, because the convention is happening so quickly after petitions needed to be filed, for example.
Right.
And there just isn't a standardization, whether or not it's on Zoom or in person, that before you vote for a candidate, you even have to hear from the candidates.
Mhm.
And not everybody may do that work on their own to, be super informed. So sometimes it, at least from where I'm sitting, appears as if, special treatment could potentially be given by people who are already very well known, or who already have, a lot of things set up that first time people who are running probably don't have, or don't have the money or the teams behind them. So it just doesn't really give you that equal playing field that I think many people were looking for after the fall of the county line.
And what we're really excited about is this is the first time that I can think of since living here where we're coordinating beyond our borders in Soma.
Yeah.
We're working with Nutley, we're working with Bloomfield, we're working with Glen Ridge, we're working with Montclair, and like-minded folks. I mean, our chats are going up. Like we have multiple WhatsApp channels going, and it is exciting. It's exciting because people see that the grassroots matter even at these levels where it's always been, this is the way it's always done. No, the grassroots is coming together, and we are building a coalition of people who can really change things around. And it takes time, and it's going to take energy, and it's going to take people learning about these processes. But I am really jazzed about where we're headed, and I think we've made a lot of change already.
And so a lot of what you've been looking for, it sounds like, is that like willingness to be like, okay, like these are systems that have ossified. Like we need to be doing better. We need to be changing things. We need to be
Yeah.
making sure that newcomers have access to systems of power, that power isn't concentrated, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a core example,
Yeah.
right? When Ana Lilia ran for Congress, all of the candidates spoke in front of the convention. She challenged us because she was a district leader as to why the convention was hastily convened after Thanksgiving, before some of the candidates had even like laid the groundwork, right? They were required to turn in their signatures, and the next day was the convention almost. It was nuts. And the way in which it was being conducted, it was a 2-minute speech. People hadn't laid out the groundwork, and then we were just going to vote off of a 2-minute speech. It was a farce.
Yeah, whoever's
And so
wins.
Right, and so she asked us to abstain, and a number of us abstained. So I think it just shows you, and then she won. She's now a congresswoman who's giving a town hall today, right? It shows you that what's being done, it might look fair, but is it truly the way to represent the people? That's what we're looking for. And I think, we're coming around to getting there.
A question. So when you say represent the people, I've never been a district leader. Like I'll work with South Orange Democrats, whoever, on common issues. But like when you're an elected district leader, is there then outreach to your district to find out who are they supporting? How is that representation going from the neighborhoods to the district leader,
Yeah.
to the convention, to votes?
That's a great question. We actually have a tool that allows us right now to see who's voted, who's not voted, and we're individually reaching out to people in our neighborhood districts, telling them, reminding them to vote, telling them who we're supporting and why, and we're asking for their feedback. So absolutely, I walk door to door in my neighborhood. People know me.
Oh yeah, our
And they
district
know
is too.
Laura Levine, who's my co-DL, and like we are out and about.
I think it's probably because these conventions, as you said, are thrown together so quickly, is that even before the convention happens, like I remember in the recent, congressional election, is that one candidate had already released pretty much every single player in Essex County
Yeah.
on a mass endorsement, from all the legislators to all the Essex County commissioners to the county executive to the everyone, even before the convention even
Mhm.
happened. I know we were on different sides,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I was the only mayor who had endorsed Malinowski.
Yeah.
And you know, and then there was the movement of Anna Lilia happening, but
Mhm.
like, you know, I was telling people to abstain too, but to support Tom, who was
Right.
just wrestling us all.
Yeah.
Right, well, those
And
those
was like,
players came
finally,
together.
yeah. And so
The
you
players-
guys, when you
Yeah.
pull all the people who are disenfranchised and
Yeah.
aren't benefiting from the
100%.
system, you actually get a lot more than the people who have always
Right.
been there and don't
Yeah.
want to change it.
Well, I'll be very clear. I don't think county conventions should endorse pre-primary at all. That is my position. It's not reflected of,
I
it's not
agree.
reflective of the entire Essex Reform Dems
Sure.
movement, but it is my position that a county should not exist in order to just put its
Pick
thumb
and
down
choose, yeah.
pre-primary.
I think a lot of what we're all getting at is this idea of like, who are politicians supposed to look to in order for direction? Because like that was one of the bizarre things moving here from Michigan and California, where it's like go to be district leader and met with almost that, like it's almost illegitimate to like put your name on the ballot and go talk to voters. You have to ask for permission from the higher ups, and it's like,
Mhm.
wait, like what? And so looking at sort of that like reform piece of like, are we looking for people like Andy Kim, for example, who's like very very much looking to like, what are people looking for, what should I represent? Or are you looking to the thing of, it's like, well, I need to talk to these three people, and if I get their blessing, well,
Actually,
then
my
it's
job.
done. Yeah. So I think so. We talked a bit about like the looking for people who are going to change, who are going to reinvigorate, all that kind of piece. I want to go to the flip side, which is another thing that took me aback here, in addition to like, on the one hand, the machine politics, and on the other hand, um, handling conflicts in ways that solve problems as directly as possible without the unnecessary escalation and drama. Because what I was, just to give some context, like I said, I moved out here from being a teacher administrator. But the area that I was in had very, very high rates of community violence. And so we had times where it's just like, you have to get your ego out of the way. Like you have to go and solve the problem as directly and quickly as possible, because escalation could lead to a shootout at dismissal. And you had to get it right.
Yeah.
And so, and the community support, there wasn't just us, um, but it was bizarre moving here and watching multiple instances of things where I'm like, that is a 10-minute conversation and an apology that instead metastasized into these like community dramas, and that's in the New York Times. And I'm like, what's going on here? So, especially for those of you who have like been elected officials, like what are some key things that elected officials need to do and avoid doing when managing conflict, either between constituents, between yourself and constituents, or any of those sorts of things?
Well, first thing that popped in my mind is have a therapist on speed dial. You need to honestly, you need to have someone that you can talk to that's not your family, that is not another person on the elected body. You need someone who's going to help you get your head straight, because as much as you want to make the other person the bad guy, sometimes we shoot our own selves in the foot by saying something flippant or whatever. So having somebody you can bounce things off of to get your own head straight is very, very important. And then again, in the community, and I've been pushing this since COVID, we've lost the ability in some sectors completely, in other places we're getting it back, to disagree civilly. We get angry and just want to burn everything down. And that is not mentally healthy. So we need to really push community wide for some mental health supports in our communities, and make them available wherever they happen to be it the high school, the school counselor's office, be it at the library, having maybe people drop in for things, just having it available. We're doing a really good job in our police departments by having it available for folks who may be having mental breaks. Having someone step in, our social workers available. So that type of thing needs to be put in place. But we also have to be realistic. We are adults. And I hate to say that we need to grow the hell up, but some of us need to grow the hell up. And we can't always have all the toys in the toy box. We've got to share. And if you got to win and you have something that is on your plate that maybe isn't 100% what you want, but it's 75% of what you want, that's still a win in my opinion. So take it, support them, help them. And not that you're trying to do tit for tat, like I did this for you, now it come back for me. But look at it as like, okay, this wasn't for me, but not everything in the community is about me. Why can't it be for Sheena? Why
But it
can't
is. No.
It's not about me. So we need to grow up. So I mean, it sounds simple and it sounds silly, but a lot of us need to take a step away from our own egos
Mm.
and look at the community as a whole as what's important. Uplift the community, not just your little pot in it.
Mhm.
This one's challenging. I mean, I've had to intervene. I don't want to say I had to, but I chose to intervene in a lot of things that happen. Things have escalated where people have felt very threatened by
Mhm.
what other community members have said. And now you're moving it into the police,
Yeah.
right? As now you feel threatened by, words, and it grows. And I don't know if we're different from other communities. It's just more of our dirty laundry is out there for people
Public,
to
yeah.
see. I don't have a good answer because I don't think I've successfully been able to solve this problem. And the more social media we have, and the more, or the less face to face, I think only creates that. We have fake news in all different areas that are always
everywhere.
popping
Yeah.
out. And I think the most that we could do as an elected official or an elected body is to lead by example. Is that if I'm being irrational and I'm saying hurtful things and my intent is to hurt you, then it's okay. Like, and I'm always reminding myself is that we have kids who are watching these interactions going back and forth, and they're hurtful. And I mean, for somebody running for office, I would say if people being cruel or questioning you or trolling you sometimes can really take a toll on you personally, then maybe an elected office may not be the right spot. Maybe it's in a support role, or maybe it's organizing, because you are the target of a lot of things. I've seen things happen to Jermaine. They've certainly happened to me nonstop, and it's not even always on display. People can text you really mean things, or they can email you just awful things. I had a threat against my life where the police department even came and picked me up from an airport because there was some pretty violent stuff that happens. And so I think you always want passionate people, but people who show respect, and even if I completely disagree with you, you're never going to see me, really go low at the community level.
Right.
Outside of the community level, I think I do go low. Sometimes it is nice to go low.
That glass of wine and that bitch fest with
but
girls.
yeah, as I always say this is for the things that we fight about in this community, I always feel like we have a shared goal. Like,
Honestly.
even I truly believe that 99.9% of us all want the outcome that's desired, right?
Yeah.
We fight over how to get there, and so it's those nuances that kind of pull out the vicious, the clause is how do we do it?
Yeah.
But I find our community overall to be very visionary, to be very empathetic, to be very caring, and wanting what's best. It's just, how to get there. And then the last thing I have to add is that 10 or 20 people on social media is not the community.
No, it is not.
And that's one thing that I always find so shocking is that, one post that has like 3 people who might keep saying things doesn't mean that the SOMA community believes something, So when somebody says everybody's talking about it, everybody wants this, I'm like, who?
It's the same 5 names.
And
I
so,
agree with you on that too. I mean, I feel like when social media happens, but I get the most joy when friends reach out in the community one-on-one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the message.
Whether right, like one-on-one messaging or one-on-one calling you and just saying, tell me what's going on. I don't have time. Like, and that just means so much. And I love when people do that because that's old school Main Street America discussion. Right. And it like people are doing it more because they think they aren't trusting. There's AI, there's artificial social media posts. We don't know what's real. And so picking up a phone is a lot easier to get the real information. And I do that with you. All the time.
I appreciate.
I feel like we do this like whenever we have
like
what are you
thinking?
thinking?
And Erica, you've been. I mean, we should actually totally acknowledge this on this nice podcast or whatever we're doing. Is you've done such a great job, I feel, by outlining issues.
Streamlining.
I don't find that you put whatever bias you might have. I don't feel that you interject that. Like, you have such a style of writing, of putting out issues and just letting people see and make a determination. Like, you trust adults to be adults, right? So when you cite things and you include links and all of that, people can make up their mind. And we're just in that world where these like little 3-second things are supposed to get your attention and drive you to the polls. But for those people, and I hope there's going to be more of us who really want to look at voter guides and really want to compare, you know, thoughts or visions or implementation, is that's a true service to the community. I wish we could expand it beyond just, I know you have to focus on SOMA actions, like main priorities, but there's so many things outside of, you know, the main things that the organization's working on, and we don't have somebody else who fills that entire void of all these other issues.
That is one of the long-term things I'm hoping to do, which is just like looking at, okay, the people who have done the work are the ones who are building the trust to be able to say, well, you know, I'm specialized knowledge in this area, and like, this is what I noticed with my expertise that's concerning. This is what I noticed that's promising, and being able to, you know, grow that in ways is really, you know, what looking at.
Well, I'm always happy to help.
And I will also say, as long as we're giving props to Erica, I would like to join that chorus in something very different, which is also your teachings within SOMA Action. And I think it comes through in your voter guide and through how you have functioned in your various roles, is the discussions on survival versus social brain, which I think is very relevant here when we're talking about how do we work through disagreements. And what you said, I think, is spot on. We don't know how to disagree peacefully. It becomes World War III, regardless of what it is. And I think that there has to be a way to stay in our social brain where we can disagree. We're not always going to get what we want.
No.
Can we come to some sort of compromise where it's enough for parties to move through it and continue on, remove some of that I must be right, remove from some of that ego. Whether it's a taking turns situation remains to be seen. But again, and it makes me also think, we fight with each other. This comes up all the time because this is who's here. This is who I have access to. This is who I can get to. The bigger problems in my life, there's nobody maybe I can fight on that.
Yeah,
but you're a great
that's
staff.
so true.
Right.
And we see that Ana Lilia brings this up all the time in her speeches, and also just more broadly in terms of the political landscape of our country. The othering that we do of other people, the scapegoating we see, we do that here. And there's got to be a way to, back to what you said again, we need to lead by example, you know, as parents to our young children, to our educators, to our elected officials. How can we do better as we move through those disagreements?
It's probably one of the things I took back from the recent township survey they did in regards to, and it was for recreation, which is silly and everything. You're thinking that I could see the community, but there are areas in the community, no matter what part of town you live in, they're important. The top 3 items were almost universal in almost every neighborhood. So as I read it, it made me realize, I'm like, you know what? This is still the Maplewood I moved into in 2003. It's changed a little demographically, but for the most part, we are a bedroom community of people who have certain things that we want for our lives. And it may not be the exact copy of what my next door neighbor has, but 4 of the 5 things are the same. So we have a lot more in common than we have not in common. And for us to keep that in the back of our minds as we're doing this work, as we're thinking about running for office, as we're looking at supporting people, we have to always remember that they're not my enemy. They're my neighbor. And we forget that a lot.
I'm going to wrap us up with just like any last quick comments, just going down the line. We don't have to go down the line.
I would say competition is good. Primaries are good. We're getting a lot of opportunities to exercise our vote, so use it wisely.
Too many people in our history, our ancestors worked hard and suffered and died for the right for us to use our voice. So use it. Otherwise, you're disrespecting their sacrifice.
Wow, those are so profound.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I hope maybe we can work together as a community to figure out a way to show people how to run for office. Like that's something that is tangible that I'd be excited about. I sometimes speak to women, the We Should Run and those groups, and I find that like the biggest issue is not knowing how to do it. And so maybe we can shed a lot of transparency on what that process looks like for those thinking about it, so it doesn't feel insider and that everybody has access and opportunity to it.
I would say if your voice didn't matter, nobody would be trying so hard to take your ability to speak it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
And I would say that wherever our community members are feeling, if they want to see change or they want to take action, that there is a path forward for them to get involved.
And I would say thank you to all of you for joining me. Yeah, and just it's been a great fun doing all these voter guides and getting to sit down with everybody, and like I'm like, there's no contested election. I don't have an excuse to interview people. Like, yeah. So I really appreciate getting to do more of these. Just like, you know, we do lead by example, and how we talk to each other, and how we interact, and how we problem solve, and how we start thinking about really holding the container for elections. Because, you know, when you're in the thick of it, it's like it's always going to be very like, you know, tunnel vision and like all the things we talk about with survival brain, where it's just like it's really easy to go too far, and it's really easy, and it's just part of human nature. And making sure that we have the trusted people and the structure around to be able to say, you know what, it's really not that big a deal. Like we don't need to burn the earth down because of this. It's really okay. Or conversely, to be able to say, like, you know, no, like this is something that is making it so this is not a fair process, and this needs to be fixed. And really building up the capacity of the community to be able to hold that, and make conflict productive and generative, as opposed to, you know, lighting a match and burning everything down.
Oh, and if we can just conclude on saying good luck to all the candidates running, and
Yes.
you know, thank you for stepping forward.
up.
It's a big deal, and so for anybody who puts themselves forward to run for office, that's a really, it's a wonderful thing. It's a scary thing also, and so to all of them, good luck.
I already voted, so yay.
And thank you all so much.
All right, bye everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.